We're very excited this week on the Remote No Pressure podcast. Well, hold on, start over.
Are you rolling?
We're rolling. Everyone ready?
On three.
Ready.
Oh, wait, on three? Or do we start on one or three?
This is awful. This will make it to the podcast, too. This will make it. Welcome to the Remote No Pressure podcast. We're super excited to be here. Bill, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Dude, I'm doing amazing.
Awesome.
I'm very excited this week because, one of the things I've noticed, Bill, is that, last week we had a female guest on, Ann Miller, who's phenomenal. She's the genius.
Yes.
And I noticed that with the female demographic in fly fishing, it's just growing like crazy, and they're so passionate, and they're so it's just cool to see that. And so I'm like, you know what? We need to have a really strong female. And we invited Jenn Ripple onto the podcast, and I'm like it's really hard for a guy to get the real true female perspective, and so we asked Merrill Robinson to come back and host the interview, and so she interviewed Jenn Ripple.
Awesome.
Merrill, are you there?
I'm here. I'm just flattered that you called me a strong woman.
I was actually talking about Jenn, but if you want to include yourself, I'm just totally kidding. Totally kidding, Merrill.
Oh, and the digs begin.
Oh, no. How was it? How was the interview, Merrill?
It was good. I kind of was a little bit rusty. Had to put some grease in the old journalism skills there, but I was definitely a little bit nervous, and you'll probably be able to tell just by my interview. But we had a good time. We talked a lot about women in fly fishing, and not just the strong presence that the women have right now, but also just how much support we're getting. Obviously, like the few bad eggs in the industry on the male side who, will throw some shade at us, but just overall, just the support that we've gotten from men and how we can't really make waves and make a difference without them. So it was a cool conversation. We had a good time, and, she travels a lot, so it was cool that she made time to have a 45-minute conversation with me.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Do you have a question, Bill?
No. Did you?
You look like
your
you're
hand
ready
was
to
up.
ask a question.
Your hand was raised, sir?
Because I'm pointing to you and say, ask a question, Bill. No. No, but, it's really cool to see that. No, let me ask you this question, Merrill, before we get started in on the interview. You said that, there's a lot of men who throw shade at you or whatever. My question is, why do you think that is?
Oh, God. So, okay, here's something going around. So I'm not just in the fly fishing community. I do marketing and PR in the outdoor industry as a whole. So a lot of what I focus on is fishing, and my passion is fly fishing. So I focus a lot on fly fishing and kind of marketing to that market, but also hunting. So in the hunting market right now, there is a video circulating about some very high engagement rate influencers on Instagram, and it's called For Love or Likes, and basically they do a hunting challenge, and they're forced to make certain shots. So I think that there's just this stigma about are these girls for real, or are they just doing this for the exposure? So to answer your question, I think that there's just this stigma out there, are these girls for real or not? But obviously, they're holding fish. They're holding fish in front of them. They're doing their thing out in the field or on the water. And I think it's so cool that, I think that there's just always going to be that sour attitude in the group. I mean, in every group, there's always oh man, here comes Uncle Steve. He's gonna really cause a problem on Thanksgiving. But I mean, it's so true.
Uncle Steve.
He's like the guy that you avoid on Thanksgiving.
Oh, Steve's drunk again.
We just lost every listener named Steve. You're never going to listen to our show again. This is Jeff. I'm here to apologize to all you Uncle Steves out there.
On behalf of my new host. Oh, God.
I don't know if you know this, Merrill, but half our demographic is actually named Steve. and that's one of the things that we
The weirdest thing too.
Oh, that would be so unfortunate. But I mean, overall, there's just always going to be that bad egg. But for the majority, there's been such great feedback, such great support. Jenn Ripple has been at the forefront of all of that positive feedback, both from women and men in the fly fishing community. And it was really great getting to interview her and hearing her side of all the people that she meets and all the women that she's connected with. And it's cool getting to connect with other girls in general. But yeah, it's cool having guys who are like, I learned how to fly fish from a guy, and a lot of women learn how to fly fish from their I was going to say consecutive others, but
how many partners do they have? That's none of my business.
Yeah,
the consecutive partners. Each one's a better fly angler. Like, I know you're attractive, but can you fly fish? That's the question. I know you're a nice guy, but can you fly
hey, you
fish?
know what? I hear in the single market that's a thing.
Yeah, that's great. Well, that's one way to get new people into fly fishing. Hey, but Bill and I want to tell you, thank you very much for doing the interview, Merrill. And the reason that we ask you is just, we really want to get that female perspective. And sometimes, like, being a guy, I don't understand, and we don't understand what the questions to ask. And so we're very thankful for you. Thank you very much, Merrill.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for having me. I've had a lot of fun just meeting the girls, and I'm excited to see how your listenership enjoys it.
Great. Well,
it's going to be fun.
If people wanted to reach you, Merrill, how would they do that?
You can reach out to me on Instagram at little.red.robinson, or you can send me an email if you have something nice to say, something negative to say, I'll take it. But you can reach me at Merrill, MERRILL, at butteruppr.com.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and welcome to the podcast. Let's light the fire.
Hey there, Jen. Welcome to the Remote No Pressure podcast. How are you tonight?
I am well. How are you?
Good. I hear that you are quite busy these days, traveling around, doing some trade shows and talking your ear off and spreading the addiction of fly fishing.
I'm trying. And sometimes I think, I'm getting too old for this. But then I always think, well, what else would I be doing with all of my time? So I may as well spread the word, right?
I mean, you could be fishing. That might be fun.
Well, yeah, it's a little cold for me, though.
Was it snowing where you are?
No, actually, it's remarkably cold for Tennessee this time of year, though. It was in the teens and the 20s, which is kind of unseasonably cold.
Yeah.
I moved here from Chicago to get away from the cold, and
my
I think
God.
it followed me.
Hey, nothing's wrong with Chicago or Tennessee. I love both.
Yes, they're both fantastic.
Well, that's good. I mean, I know it's probably a damper on the fly fishing, but I guess if it's cold enough, you could get into ice fishing. I hear that's kind of a popular thing.
Oh God, when I think of ice fishing and fly rod, I think of like accuracy casting, right? Like I'm gonna dig a hole in the ice and then I'm just gonna like try and cast my fly in there. I don't think so.
Oh my God.
No, I could fish here. It's just the rivers around here right now are flooded. So I guess if it wasn't show season, I would probably be saltwater fishing, which is my first love. So
yeah, where's your favorite spot to go?
Oh gosh, there's so many. Anywhere there's saltwater. I guess I like Florida just because I'm really familiar with it. I spent all my, summer, winters there as a child, vacationing there, and then as an adult, still going down there. My mom owned property there and that kind of stuff. So I guess that's what I'm the most familiar with. So Florida has my heart, even though I'm not retirement age yet.
Yeah. Well, Florida is kind of a second home to me as well. I have family there, and oh man.
Hey, and right?
Oh,
the smell of the salt water. Yeah.
I know. But even, man, it's something about the ocean breeze and the palm trees and probably like the rum runners and
yeah. That's not a bad thing, right?
That's always fun. Oh man. Well, so how long have you I know you're gone a lot, but it feels like we're still in January, but how
It
long
does.
have you been gone? I mean, how many days have you been home?
Yeah, not very many. So I have since the second of the year,
Yeah.
which is the Denver Fly Show starts the first weekend in January, and so since that time, I think I've only been home maybe 3 days in a row
Oh my God.
at home. Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
man.
and I'm just ready to sleep in my own bed.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you home now?
Yeah, I'm home now, but I
good.
leave first thing in the morning for Michigan.
Oh my gosh. Another speaking engagement?
Yeah, it's the Midwest Fly Fishing Show, so I'm one of their featured speakers, so I'm gonna go there and speak for the weekend.
Yeah. Well, awesome. That's good. I mean, I think it's awesome that you get out and kind of just spread the word about, the healing powers of fly fishing. And I mean, it really is just like, I feel like addiction has a bad undertone to it. But I mean, it's such a positive addiction for you.
Hey, if you got to have an addiction, it is the one to have. I'll tell you.
Absolutely.
It might take all of your money and all of your time, but there are worse things that could do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would totally agree with you on that. Well, okay, so out of all of these speaking engagements that you've done, what do you think is the most memorable one?
The most memorable. Well, I think it's one that I'm actually, I think it's going to be two of them that I haven't done yet. So I guess I really love them all. They're all really different. Like, for instance, the Denver Fly Show, that's where I first did the women's showcase and made it into what it is now. I took it over from Brooke Furimsky, who it was her brainchild. And so when she stopped doing it, then I took over. This was my third year. And that's really grown into something that's morphed into its own thing, right? It's like a show within a show. The women's section, the women's showcase now has, a waiting room only for booths inside of there. And we just draw so many people. It's really got a different feel. And, we've created a safe space for women. And, it's interesting. So when I think about what's happened at the fly fishing shows where I do the women's showcase, I always attribute it back to, I'd like to say, oh, this was my brainchild. And this is what I really planned it to be like this. But seriously, I got super lucky. And so I started the women's showcase there, working with Ben after Brooke. And we started having it was growing. I wanted it to grow. And so we had booths. So we give booths to all these different female-owned vendors. And then, so the first year we did that, and we were going to have our social hour, and we were really I was kind of a little bit peeved because we were off the main floor. He had given us our own section, but we weren't part of the main show. And that was really come on, and we were in a speaker's room where nobody could go to, and it was freezing cold, and it was just miserable. The women themselves in the booths were having a great time, but, everything else was kind of just laissez-faire. And then they were setting up for the social hour, and they accidentally set up the social hour, the bar and the food, where the booths were instead of in the speaking room where they were supposed to. And I was like, oh my gosh, this isn't supposed to be here. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait, let's leave it here. I looked around and everybody was excited, and it was close enough to the main floor that everybody wanted to come and be there. And it really was that one instance that was a mistake that turned into something incredible, because then the women's showcase became the place that everybody wanted to be.
Yeah.
And it was really neat. And so then on Sunday morning, so that happened, and that was good. And then Sunday morning, a woman came up to me, and she was about 70 years old. And she said to me, I have been fishing for 50 years. I got my husband and my son into fly fishing, and I've come to this show forever. And I heard that there was going to be a women's section. And so I thought, well, I'll go see what this is all about. And I walked through the show, and it wasn't there. And I looked for it, and I realized it was up here off the main floor. And I thought, you know what? Really, after 50 years, we're still segregating ourselves from the main floor. And I was kind of mad, but I thought I'd come over and see what it's all about anyways, right? And so she said, I came to your booth first, and I picked up your card. And your card said, empowering women, not ignoring men. And I looked around in the women's showcase, and I saw all the women who were trying things on and having a great time. She said, and I did a 180. She said, I realized that this section of the show is not for women like me who've been fishing for 50 years and feel comfortable on the main floor. It's for the vast amount of women who come to these shows and are still uncomfortable at the show. You've created a safe haven for them. Yeah. And I thought, you know what? She's so right, because we have a whole like section for women, and we have the dressing room where they can try things on, and it's all women. So you can talk to a woman about what kind of waders they like and try them on without feeling uncomfortable, and you can ask those questions that really you might, I don't know about you, but when at some point in my fly fishing career, like maybe when I had been fly fishing for about 2.5 years, 3 years or so, I spent a lot of time in the fly shop, but there were some things that at that point, people just assumed I knew the basics, right? They just assumed I knew some of these really basic things that no one had ever taught me. And so I would just agree sometimes, because I was like, oh my God, I can't tell them that I don't know that, right? Because I've been in this sport for 3 years now. And I realized that having a woman showcase like that just completely took away all the inhibitions that we as women have, and all the intimidation. And it's been such a great thing. So, I love the Denver show because that's where all of that's happening. But then there's shows like, the Midwest show that I'm going to this weekend. I learned to fly fish in Michigan. And so this is kind of like going back home. I have not been at this show in probably 8-10 years. So it's going to be interesting to go back and see some of my old friends from when I first started. But then I think my favorite shows are the ones that are not fly fishing related at all. So these are, the conventional shows, the gear shows, where there's a guy who is in charge of the Chicagoland Fishing, Travel, and Outdoor Expo and the Saltwater Show in Edison, which is in 2 weekends, and he gives us our own casting pond. There's no fly there. There's very awesome. Little fly there, and so all we do all weekend is put a fly rod in the hands of gear fishermen, and I love that. That's awesome. So I like them all, I guess, right? I mean, you can't tell that I'm excited about it.
No, I think that is awesome, and I have actually turned a bunch of gear freaks over to fly fishing.
It's
and
so
they
easy,
curse
right?
me afterwards too.
I know, right? Well, when you think about it, we always look for like the people that don't fish already, and we kind of, I find that fly fishing can be very exclusive, where gear fishing is very inclusive, meaning that gear anglers will be like, oh, well, a fly rod will help me catch more fish. Okay, I'll try that. But us as fly anglers, we can tend to be snobs and be like, oh, a lure? I would never use that, right? And so when you think about like turning people on to fly and growing our sport, we should be looking at the gear chunkers first, right? Because those guys already are 3/4 of the way there. They know where the fish live. They love to fish already. They know what they eat, and all we have to do is just show them this is another tool for their boat, and they're on board.
Absolutely. I agree with you 1,000,000%. It's so easy. And I know that a lot of people in the community have done that because it's just so easy. And once you learn how to cast, another thing is that you're always moving. And that, especially for like for kids that need to like move, a lot of them are like, oh, I have to go fishing. And we just sit there. But if you give them a fly rod and you show them how to use it, I mean, not only are they going to love it because they get to catch fish and they get to like throw these really pretty looking edible flies, but they're also just moving and it's kind of releasing some of that energy.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's a really big thing. That's how I've turned a bunch of people onto it because they're like, man, I really hate fishing. I'm like, this really is very different.
Right. Well, and that's too. I mean, and I love that you're always moving and there's always something to learn about it. And you're not just, no offense to the walleye fishermen out there who are the vast majority of my family, right? But I just cannot sit in a boat and move around up and down jigging for a walleye all day long. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's awesome that, you really kind of took the women's showcase over. I mean, you did take it over. I think it's great that you took it over and you've just seen like double and triple the numbers as it's like from year to year.
Yeah, it's been really, really neat. And I think it's interesting that that Women's Showcase, we set up a little, Sisters on the Fly sets up a little campfire with like chairs around it in the middle of the Women's Showcase. And all weekend, there are men that are sitting around. It's all men that just sit around the campfire while their women shop. It's like Nordstrom's at Christmas time. It's hysterical.
That is hysterical. Well,
Right?
I think, you kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I think that men are also, they want to go to the Women's Showcase because I think that men are as equally excited about women getting into the sport.
Absolutely. And I think that it's a small vocal minority, a very minuscule vocal minority of men who say things like, I don't care if women fish, I just don't want them on my rivers. Because when I speak, and let's say I speak to I do this all the time when I speak to all women, but I do it when I speak to men and women as well. I'll say like, okay, ladies, how many of you were brought to the sport by your husband? And they stand up and then I go through all the different male, people that there could be, like your uncle, your son, your grandfather. And by the time I'm done listing all of those male figures, it's like 95% of the women are standing. And so that to me proves that men want women in this sport. They're not out there saying, we don't want women to fish. Yeah. They're saying, yes, we want you to fish. And yes, we want you on our rivers. Yes, we look at you as equals. And that part I love, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I mean, so kind of segueing into what you do every day, I think that when you started Done Magazine, what made you want to choose just exclusively focusing on women versus just putting a fly fishing magazine out there? Especially because women, like you said, 95% of them are all standing up because a man that they care about brought them into this sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I guess I never really thought about it. I just, I was writing for a Midwest fly fishing magazine called A Tight Loop, and then I was writing a woman's column, and so then I wanted to write for a woman's magazine, and I looked around for one, and there wasn't one. So I guess I just saw a void of something that I was missing and thought if I was missing it, others would be too. So that's why. And, first and foremost, Done is a fly fishing lifestyle magazine. So, 48% of our readership is male. Really
awesome.
Yeah, because it's a fly fishing magazine, and it just so happens that almost all of our authors are female, right?
Yeah,
so, that's it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's just, I love seeing more women, and I guess I think exclusively, focusing on women because all of your authors are women. And I think that it's really cool because not only do we get to hear their stories, but we get to hear other people's stories, but they're the ones who are actively out there putting the work in to keep this sport alive. And they're really stewards of the fly fishing community.
Well, and isn't that interesting? Because all of our authors are everyday women, right? They're not the professionals. So when you say they're out there being the stewards, they are. It is the everyday angler that makes a difference, right? Yeah, and maybe those of us who are in the industry, we might be the voice for it, but it is the everyday people who do all the work.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with you on that because if we had bad members of the sport, then we would have bad members.
Right, exactly. Well,
and there are a few bad eggs.
There are a few of them, and it's funny, things have changed so much in the last 6 years that I've had the magazine. But 6 years ago, and 5 years ago, I'd get emails all the time, and not that I don't now, but it's a little better. But I'd get emails all the time from, let's say, a TU chapter who would say, "How do I get more women involved in our chapter?" And I'd say, well, I can get the women there, but can you keep them there? Because it's really a different culture now than it was even 5-6 years ago, right? I mean, it's much more inclusive than it was.
Absolutely. Well, so have you been seeing a lot more, like a higher female retention rate at some of these events?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And we've seen, so I spoke at an F3T event that was in Cleveland a couple days ago. And I I'm from the Midwest. I love the Midwest. But I left the Midwest, some time ago. And when I looked out at that audience, which was 600 people, there was a huge amount of women, just huge. And I even said something about it when I was there. I said, look at this. This tells me two things. Number one, it tells me that women are the growing demographic in our sport. And it tells me, number two, that your group, the Cleveland Museum of Natural History Trout Club, is a good group because you're retaining the women and you're obviously, bringing them in and keeping them. And so I do see a huge difference. I think women just feel much more comfortable nowadays in their own skin and on the water, It makes a big difference.
I'd agree with you on that. And I mean, I guess, companies are now starting to come out with female rods, and we're starting to see more and more female exclusive brands of waders, or even just like not even focusing on like pink reels or anything like that, but you're just seeing more and more female product. And it's not even that they're just being marketed to females, but they're actual female product.
Right. Which makes a big difference. When I first started fishing, I had to wear boys' waders, right? Because there were no waders for me that would fit me. And, and they didn't fit me well because I had children and I might have been small, but I still had hips, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's been a detriment to women getting involved in the sport for some time. When you're not comfortable in your waders and it's a lot of work to walk around. I mean, how many, you remember the days when you had to like borrow someone's gear and you had like waders on that were too big and boots that were too big and heavy and clunky, and it was just miserable, right?
Absolutely.
And so now having gear that you actually feel good about and having gear that fits right has made all the difference. And being able to offer that to women who want to try the sport is just it's so much easier to get them involved then. And, and two, I think the rod manufacturers have made such strides in making a rod that's easy to cast for the everyday angler, the new angler, the angler who only fishes a couple times a year, which is the vast majority of fly anglers out there. A lot of people don't get a chance to fish as much as they'd like to, and so having a rod that works with you instead of against you has been a huge game changer as well.
Oh yeah, I would agree 100%. Just, I mean, especially I think women have also just kind of taken notice that they're being heard in the industry versus like, I don't know. I have heard that some of the conventional gear junkie companies that we talked about earlier, I heard that they are having a little bit more of a difficult time with or just creating women product and getting the numbers in.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think that women in the fly fishing community are definitely taking notice.
Yeah.
But I think that they also, and I know that some girls, they can dance, some can't, but I know that I think that women, all in all, just kind of like the quote unquote finesse of this sport, in that you might your cast might be a little bit ugly, but at the end of the day, you're still going to be catching fish.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the good things about the sport is you don't have to be an expert in order to have a great time. Right.
Yeah.
And I just think, for women, we used to have a bumper sticker at the magazine and it said, it's not the size, it's the experience. Right. And I think that really explains women in the industry. Whereas, I like to use this example. So when I was involved with the Midwest Fly Fishing magazine, it was like 99% male authors, right? And that's who I was dealing with on a daily basis. And then with Done, it's 99% female authors. And I always say the difference is like this. The difference is like you have a baby and I say to you, oh my God, your baby's so cute. And how big was she? And oh, look at all that hair and what a cute outfit. Okay, those are my Done authors. The Tight Loop authors were like, my baby's bigger than your baby. My baby has more hair than your baby, And so it's just such a dichotomy between the way that the different sexes tend to approach fly fishing, right? And I'm just speaking in generalities, obviously now.
Yeah.
Not everybody fits every single one of these generalities, but as a whole, I think that men and women approach fly fishing for different reasons. And women, it's not always about the fish. It's about the experience. It's about being on the water. It's about, maybe the birds that are around, or the sounds, or just getting away from the everyday stress, or having wine with your girlfriends on the river, at lunchtime. And it's about so much more, right? It's so much more.
Oh my gosh. And I mean, even just having a couple extra girls on a co-ed trip just makes all the difference.
Oh, for sure. For sure it does. I mean, it just changes the whole tone of the whole trip, for sure.
I guess just having and seeing more women out, especially when you run into another girl on the river, my heart still gets excited.
I know. So I don't know if you know Jerry Meyer from Athena and Artemis, the women's fly shop, but she owns a brick and mortar fly shop in the Driftless area of Wisconsin, and she also owns Athena and Artemis. And I went into her shop and she was like, "Oh my God, there's a girl in there." She's like, "I'm like a little puppy dog." I'm like, "Oh, please like me, please like me, please like me." And I always remember her saying that, because it's like, that's how you feel when you see another woman in our sport. Like, "Oh my God, another one, yay."
Yeah. I mean, I would totally agree with you on that one though. Because it's like, you're instantly like, "Oh my, we have to be best friends, like right now."
Right. It's like, I have a new friend. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, okay. So tell me a little bit about, I know that you are currently throwing an Orvis rod, correct? Tell me a little bit about your experience with your fly fishing gear, and kind of how, just like your experience on just getting from one rod to the next to finally Orvis.
Yeah. So, I don't align myself with any particular company. I just really throw what I love. And right now I love different rods at different price points, to be real honest, and for different things. So my H3, I throw the H3. That would be my go-to rod. I absolutely love that rod. I've been using it since before it came out, actually. And it's just one of those rods, it's a very expensive price point. It's just one of those rods that anybody can cast it and just feel like you're a good caster, right? I mean, now there's always those days, and I know exactly how it's going to go from the moment I throw my first fly, right? I throw my first cast of the day, and I know if it's going to be a good day or a bad day. And everybody has a bad day where you tangle yourself in your line regardless, and you get stuck in every damn tree that's out there, right? Other than that, this rod is just one that no matter whose hand I put it in, it's easy to cast and they love it. But it's a high price point,
Yeah.
But there are other ones that are out there that I love. Like, for instance, I don't know if you've heard of the Mauser fly rod. It's made by these guys they've only been around a couple of years, but I'm telling you, this is a mid-price rod and it's great. In fact, when they approached me at iCast a couple of years ago and said, "Oh, Jen, we'd really love for you to throw a rod," I was like, "Oh, God," because it's such a precarious position to be in, a small rod company, and they're so excited about the product, and you pick it up and, you hate it. And then what do you say, right? But I was so shocked by this rod that I just, I love the boys that are behind it, and I love the rod. So that, that is like one that I grab as well. But then there's also, really, really great rods like St. Croix, which has been around forever. And so like St. Croix, most people started, especially in the Midwest, with the Imperial fly rod that St. Croix makes, and they still make it to this day, and it's still awesome, and it's still $200, right? Yeah. And so there's no excuse for anybody at this point to not get involved in this sport, because you can do it. When I started out, to be real honest, I bought a rod off of Craigslist, and I know you're not supposed to do that, but I didn't have a lot of money when I first started, right? And
absolutely.
And I didn't know if I wanted to really be in this sport. I mean, I thought I did, but I can tend to be, wishy-washy sometimes. So I didn't want to spend $800 on the best rod that was out there on the market at that point. I mean, and really, sometimes the best rod on the market isn't good for every angler. It doesn't fit your cast.
Yeah.
Personally, I can never throw a glass rod. I'm terrible.
You and me both.
Oh my God. I was like, I just feel like I don't know anything I'm doing. I may as well cast with my left hand, right?
Oh my God.
I just can't do it. That's not the type of rod that fits my cast. The H3, on the other hand, the fast rod that's really, responsive. I mean, that thing, I can bomb out cast like crazy.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I
definitely,
I knew that you didn't like associate yourself with any one brand. And I knew that you had worked with Orvis in the past, but I think that I just thought it was awesome that you threw an H3. I just think that is so cool.
Well, why wouldn't you, right? It's like,
exactly.
I think for a very long time, I think that Orvis has made the best 6-weight on the market. And it's funny because, when they started their 50-50 initiative, they asked me to be part of their original tribe, which I was really proud. I'm proud of being part of that because I really believe in what they've done. But, at that point, I have to admit, when I went there for that big, long seminar that they had us there for to pick our brains, I went with a really bad attitude.
Really?
Because, which is, and I'm admitting this because I'm just real and what you see is what you get. And I probably shouldn't say this, but, I went with a bad attitude because manufacturers have been asking for a long time, what our opinions were as women. And then no one ever did anything about it. And so I felt like, oh, great. We're going to go to the dog bed company and they're going to ask us a whole bunch of questions and waste a whole bunch of our time. And we're going to give them all this information and they're not going to do anything about it. And they're not going to put their money where their mouth is and none of this stuff, right? So I went with a bad attitude. But Orvis shocked me. I mean, I did a 180 on the Orvis company because they put their money where their mouth was. They were the first, I have to say, they were the first big manufacturer to jump on board of our magazine and give us advertising dollars, which was huge. If that doesn't say that they believe in the women's market, I don't know what does.
Yeah,
but then they
absolutely.
they started listening and they started making products that actually fit us the way we wanted to be fit, and that were light and had the pockets where they were supposed to be. And, and for me, that says a lot about a company.
I agree.
It made me a believer. It really did.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And, when I first started, I kind of did the same thing you did. I didn't buy it off Craigslist, but I just went to Field and Stream and I was like, oh, $120. Even then I was like, this is a little high to see if I like this sport.
Right.
But, I really want to kind of try this again. So I'm going to do it. But I mean, that rod didn't fit me. It would have made so much more sense for me to go with a company that actually focuses on women's height and making a specific product that fits them.
Right.
And I just think that it's so cool that you, first of all, throw an H3 because why not? But also, too, I just think it's cool that they've done so much and Orvis has really paved a way with 50-50 on the water.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And the women that are leading that charge from Orvis are just fantastic, fishy women. Yeah. So it's hard not to get excited when you know them. And
so are you still involved in Orvis's campaign?
Yeah. So Dunn is a big supporter of the Orvis 50-50 initiative. It would be stupid for us not to be because it's such a great initiative. And, it really is about, they're 50-50 by 2020, which is coming up next year.
I know.
And, it's a tall order. But, I think it's more about saying that we just want equal time on the water. We just want people to know that women are there. It's not that, we're like, oh, yay, women's lib. We're just going to be all about women's lib, and not that that's a bad thing, but I think it's just more about recognizing that when a woman walks into a fly shop, she's not always there for her husband.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want
people to be listen up because Jen knows what's up.
Right, exactly. I'm not shopping for my significant other. I'm shopping for myself. And we're going to get to a point one day where I hope that it would be, the future generations would look back on this and be like, what? There was a time that women felt uncomfortable in the water. That's so weird, right?
Yeah.
And we've started that climb. I don't think it's going to be, it might not be in my lifetime, but maybe it'll be in my grandkids' lifetime.
I'm wondering if the sport of fly fishing is going to be a little bit like PR. So, like when people think PR, they kind of think Mad Men. But if you look at the numbers, the PR industry is like 90 to 95% women now.
Right? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. And I'm wondering if fly fishing at some point, I mean, it might be 30, 40, 50 years, but I'm wondering if that is what is going to happen to the sport.
Yeah, I could easily see that happening.
Yeah.
Right? Easily, because women we've just kind of jumped into this with both feet. We are in the stream. We are not getting out.
Absolutely.
And we're here to stay. So
hey, go ahead.
And it's funny because when I think about, how I always thought women were new to the sport. We're not new to the sport. The first book in fly fishing was written by a woman in the 15th century.
Yeah.
The way that the streamer is tied was by a woman. Stevens Point, Wisconsin is named the fly tying capital of the world because of a woman. Come on already.
Oh my God. I think that we were probably always there. The women were probably always there, but now with social media, we're seeing so much more.
Right. Now, and I think that with seeing women more prominently out there on the rivers, showing their fish or talking about fly fishing, it just shows other women that maybe wanted to try it, that it might not be that hard, that, oh my gosh, look at all these women out there. Yes, I can do this too. There's no reason why fly fishing can't be the next yoga.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes. I love that.
Well, it's true. It should be.
It's so true. And what's so cool about the sport too, I mean, whether you're a man or a woman, but like no matter what your view on life is, whether you are just total opposites in life, for some reason, when you hit the water, you leave everything at the bank.
That's right.
What is up with that?
I think water seeks its own level, right? We used to say in chemistry class, water seeks its own level. And I think that it's kind of like birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah.
And it's such a stress reliever. And we are all, like Bull Sugar for a while had a big sign and it said, Republican, Democrat, water, with the box checked next to water, because water should have no political party. And so no matter what happens out there, no matter what your difference is, this is the place where you can just leave it all away and wash it all downstream. And, at the end of the day, fly fishing is fishing, and fishing is supposed to be fun, right?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be fun. So if it's not fun, then we're doing something wrong. And I think, it's kind of like when they used to say, if you're mad at someone, you should always eat a meal with them and talk about it, because there's something about eating with someone that, across the table while you're doing that activity, that's hard to be mad and you can thresh things out. And I think that fly fishing is the same way, right? When you're out on the river, it doesn't matter how bad of a day you're having. Just being out there with somebody else just takes all of that angst away.
Yeah, there's just too much serotonin going on in the brain.
Right. True.
Way too much serotonin going on.
I agree.
Just exuding it. Oh my gosh. Well, so do you have any before we talk about that, tell us a story. Tell us an all women's fly fishing story that you have, just like your favorite one, all girls trip.
Oh my gosh. So I know exactly what that is.
Perfect.
So some years ago, I was contacted by a man named Paco Marroquin from Tabasco, Mexico.
Oh, cool.
And he contacted me and he said, listen, I want you to come down and see this fishery we have here. And Tabasco was an old oil town, right? So like BP was there and all that. And so, the oil was leaving the area and they were looking for something else to do to maybe revitalize the area. And they have this fishery, this long river system. It's the second largest river in Mexico, is in Tabasco. And and so he said, oh, it's a tarpon fishery and you can come down and you can there are thousands of tarpon. As fast as you can cast, you can catch them. And I thought, oh yeah, right. Okay. So anyways, I went down there to see it. And he was right. I mean, I've never seen a tarpon fishery like this before. I mean, there's just tarpon boiling at the surface everywhere. And honestly, I stood on the front of the boat, threw my, you know how you get your line ready and you just kind of cast it out and you strip it back so that your line is all ready on the ground in the right way. Well, I did that. And as soon as my fly hit the ground, the water, I had a tarpon on. And I was like, oh my God, where am I? This is like the Twilight Zone, right? So then he said, well, why don't you come back with a women's group? So I got a group of women together. I think there were 8 of us, or 8 women and me. And we went down to Tabasco. They were from all over the United States and of all different levels. So the vast majority of women who went down had never fished for saltwater. Some of them could not even double haul, and none had ever caught a tarpon.
Oh my gosh.
And so they went down there and these women caught tarpon after tarpon after tarpon. And you could hear them screaming on the river, and you could hear them and at one point I took a bottle of tequila and stuck it in a boat with 2 girls who were from Colorado. And in fact, one of them, her and her husband own a fly shop, and the other one owns Angler, which is a woman's line of clothing, fishing clothing. And so those 2 women in the boat, and so they had a bottle of tequila, and I was like, well, when you catch a tarpon, you got to take a drink. And so I came by a couple hours earlier, and I'm like, how's it going? And they're like, oh my God, we've caught so many fish that at this point, when we lose a tarpon, we take a drink.
Oh my God.
It was
that
just
is
so
awesome.
much fun. Yeah. So that was by far my favorite trip.
Man.
Just in all age groups, from women in their 20s to women in their 70s came. It was just a great, and it's like what you were talking about, how somehow fly fishing just is that leveler no matter where you're at in life, right? You can find a common ground with other women or men or whoever anglers. And that was that trip, so you couldn't have picked more diverse, different women than what went on my trip. And they all had just a blast because they were out there on the water, right?
I think probably the saltwater helped too. They just had to. Along with the tequila shot? Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, man. Well, do you have any fun, exciting trips planned for this summer? I know you're ready. You got to be ready to get back on the water.
Well, I went to Argentina a couple weeks ago. That was really fun. Yeah. But in the summer, I'm teaming up with Heather Hodson from United Women on the Fly again. And so we're doing our second Rip and Hoppers adventure road trip. And we are fishing from Nags Head, North Carolina to New Orleans, fishing redfish along the way and meeting up with women. So any women who want to come and meet us along the way, we are going to be just having a blast. And we're actually going to be in New Orleans for Halloween. How great is that going to be?
Oh my gosh, you're going to love it. I've actually been in New Orleans on Halloween. You are going to love it.
Well, you have to come back. Come on down.
I would love to. I love New Orleans.
Come hang out with us. Yeah.
I'm definitely a Southern girl. I would love to come meet up with y'all. That sounds awesome.
God. All right. Do it.
So y'all are fishing for just redfish for the whole trip?
Yep. It's a redfish trip from Nags Head to New Orleans. And we're starting off fishing with Sarah Gardner, who is just a woman who is like a matriarch of our sport, right? I mean, she has been a guide and a captain on the East Coast for so long. And she's just one of those women that was doing it because she loved it and has been doing it since before social media. And, and she just is one of these I can't even say enough about her because she just is not one of those people that's ever put herself in the limelight, and yet she should be.
Yeah.
And so we're super excited to go fish with Sarah and start off our trip.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Y'all are going to have you need to come up with a hashtag for everybody to follow.
I know, right? Well, we had like Rip and Hopper's Adventure. It's a little long, but so maybe I think we're just going to try and do like redfish. I don't know. We haven't come up with it yet. If you think of a good one, let us know.
Yeah, we need to come up with a good hashtag for this. So if you have a good one, definitely send it in to us because we need to know.
All right. We want you guys to watch along.
That y'all are gonna have a blast doing that.
Oh my God. Yeah, and I'm just so excited to see all the women that are going to come out.
Yeah.
Because last year on a road trip from Nashville to Craig, Montana, we had 5 events, and we just met up with so many women. In fact, we tripled the population of Craig, Montana with just women.
No way.
Yes, it was awesome. Uh-huh.
So what do you do with these women once they come?
So what we did on our road trip the last time was we had a big event at either a fly shop or like we had one at Willie's Distillery in Ennis or St. Pete's Fly Shop in Fort Collins. And so we just gather all the women and the women come down and then they can fish with us and, rent boats and, have guides come and go out. So we're all on the water at the same time and we're just all fishing and having a great time. Then we go back and we have a big event where last year we did a big, a thing where Heather taught good proper fish handling skills. Yeah. And, then we gave away a pair of Costa sunglasses. Costa was very generous with us and Nissan gave us a Titan truck to drive. I mean, it's just crazy how cool it all was. But we would drive from place to place. So we drove from Nashville to Viroqua, Wisconsin. And each leg of the journey, we would bring a different woman with us. So from Nashville, we picked up Rachel McLennan, who is a local Nashville woman, and we took her with us to fish Viroqua, Wisconsin, where she had never fished before, the driftless area. And then Rachel flew home, and we picked up Jerry Meyer, who has the fly shop there, and Athena and Artemis, and we took her with us to Fort Collins.
Was she freaking out the whole time?
Oh, my God. Yeah, she was just having a ball. If you know anything about Jerry, you just know that she is just the craziest, nicest, most fun person that I've ever met. And so it was just a wild time. But yeah, we'd have all these women's events where we give away a whole bunch of stuff and we get women out, and introduce them to the other women that are in their community that they probably didn't know were even there. Right. And so it just was a great big community outreach thing that we did. And we are planning on doing the same thing this year.
Yeah. I think that just giving women an outlet to meet other women, because it's fun to go out with your boyfriend or your dad or your husband, but at the end of the day, girls need their girlfriends, right? And guys need their guy friends. Boys need boy time, and girls need a good girls' night out with wine.
That's right. Or whatever you want to bring. I don't judge.
But I just think just giving women an outlet and a reason to meet up, because Netflix is always going to be there, and a lot of us get lazy, especially the millennial girls. I get it 100%, but they want to connect, and they're ready for something, and just something for them to just go to and be a part of and feel like they are just a part of this community. And I think that you're providing that for them.
I hope so. I hope we are. Yeah. We're trying.
Just you and Heather trekking across the South together and doing this. You already are, which is great. And I really hope that you all have a great turnout. And I hope that some of the listeners will come up with a hashtag, because that will be awesome.
Yeah, there we go. Let's ask the listeners.
Yeah, let's send in some good tips for Jen and Heather so they can have a really good hashtag so we can all follow along on their trip together. Exactly.
We might even do the winning hashtag. We'll throw some swag your way.
Oh, that would be awesome. There you go, guys. You have incentive now. Oh, Jen. Well, thanks so much for being on the show with us. And I hope that you have a great summer and kill the rest of your speeches. We know you're going to do great.
Well, thank you very much. It's been so much fun talking to you.
You too. Have a good night.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Well, thank you, Merrill. Thank you, Jen. And thank you for joining us on another episode of the Remote No Pressure Podcast. Everyone, I need your attention, please. If you are a content creator, if you make video, if you take awesome pictures, if you are a writer, if you've always wanted to start a podcast or have a podcast that you already have, we would like to talk to you, Bill.
Yes.
Our workload
Preach it.
Our workload is growing.
It is. We are busy men.
We're very busy between our jobs and this. It's like, holy
Yes.
cow.
This is almost a part-time job.
It is. It's very busy,
It is.
but it's awesome.
It is. I'm not complaining.
You having fun, Bill?
I am having fun.
I'm having fun too, because I work with great people.
Oh, wait, that's just me.
That's
and
just
Merrill.
you and Merrill. And, just the interviews that we do and the people that we meet.
Yep.
It's just been phenomenal to see that.
And if you got time to get out on the water, it's even better,
Yep. You have relationships with people, and fishing is always great. I can't wait we're going to be going out steelhead fishing soon.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So I say we, as in you too, Bill.
Oh,
You're going to
me
have
too?
to come with me. I'm going to invite you. Consider this an invitation.
Aw.
Yeah. We got trout camp coming up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, yes.
But we do have some other events coming up. Bill?
You mean April 8th in Pittsburgh?
April the 8th, and I'm glad you remember the date, because that's why I pointed to you, like, Bill?
Remember? We had something.
But yeah, April the 8th, we have Pittsburgh Trout Unlimited. Bill and I will be there. We're very excited. If you could make it out, we'd love to meet you in person. Yeah, and that's it right now.
Yeah, that's about it.
And so we didn't really get to talk much before the show, but how's everything going for you? How's your week going? Everything?
Good. Things have been going good. Sorry, I just had a flash in my head. I can't talk about it.
Is it about the Asian carp again?
No, whoa.
Did we go too far last week?
Did we hear any feedback about that?
No, we did not. We had good feedback.
Oh,
a lot of
good.
people laughed, thought it was funny. But one thing I noticed is I coughed a lot in that episode.
And I'm starting to. I'm getting a little something.
Really?
Yeah.
I was coughing a lot, and it's like become a part of the podcast.
Yeah, Jeff, there's me, there's you, and there's your cough.
There you go.
Now there's Merrill.
There's we got me, you, we got the two coughs who work here, and we have Merrill. No, it's hilarious.
So if you're creative and you can cough,
If you can cough and you're creative. No, but seriously, I'm very excited about some things that are coming up with Remote No Pressure, and as we're gaining traction on things, and we'll have some big announcements here coming second quarter. We got some cool announcement to make.
What is it? Well, you can tell me off the air.
I can't tell you.
Yeah, spoilers.
You know, but you forgot.
I've got one of them brains. It's contagious.
Well, thanks you guys for listening. Until next time, go fishing.